welcome back to The Big Picture. Even though Tyvis is on paternity leave,
for 3 weeks.
For 3 weeks, we are still going to talk about some sports. Joining us, our favorite, Dr. Jared Pinson with the Cedarville University Associate Professor of Economics. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a great morning.
Okay, so we are talking about this bipartisan bill that U.S. senators introduced, and basically it aims at addressing current issues in college sports, like including an effort to restore some rulemaking power to the NCAA and open the possibility of conferences to sell their lucrative television rights as one large group. For those who are not, the viewers who are not following college sports as closely, how big of a deal is this bill and how would it change everything?
Yeah, this would be a game changer. College sports, particularly men's basketball and football, are kind of the Wild West, where the NCAA has theoretical ability to enforce rules, but every time they get challenged in court, they tend to lose. And the two major changes with this particular bill is, one, standardizing the name, image, and likeness rules. Different states have different rules. The bill wants to have one federal set of rules. And the second one is the antitrust exemption given to the NCAA, which would allow them to therefore enforce the rules that they have.
And the bill would also allow conferences to negotiate TV deals together. Who would benefit most from that?
Smaller conferences would benefit the most from that. And the way that the legislation is written right now is actually 75% of FBS participants must agree to this. And the 75% number is interesting because if you add the SEC, the Big Ten, and just one other school, let's say Notre Dame, that's more than 25%. So it wouldn't even come into being. The SEC and the Big Ten don't want to pool their media rights, but the smaller conferences do because it gives them more bargaining power.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to the NCAA, they're talking the idea of doing, really caps for their athletes. And we've talked about, this started with the pros, then it went down to college level, and now we're talking high school in many states across the country. Are spending caps on athletes at this point, are they realistic, or have things kind of gone past that?
Well, the spending caps from the universities are now required by law. That was a federal settlement last year, the House settlement. And so schools have roughly $20 million that they are able to spend on their athletes. That'll adjust every year. That's in place for the next 10 years. What this legislation does is it codifies that and extends it past to 2035. It also regulates, again, the name, image, and likeness to be enforced. Right now, schools are using it as sort of a backdoor to give even greater payments to their athletes. Technically, they're supposed to be endorsement deals, but it's very difficult to regulate what's going on. And so you have situations, or at least accusations, of athletes receiving money for name, image, and likeness when they're not actually doing anything. So it's around the cap, and that's the issue going on.
And then this bill would also limit athletes to one transfer without any penalty. From an economics perspective, do you think this would create more stability? Because what we see right now, these players are transferring almost every year sometimes.
Yeah, there's two parts of it. There's the transfer part, which you mentioned, which is one free transfer, so you don't have to sit out a year. Any transfer beyond that, you sit out a year, but also a 5-year eligibility window. So what we've seen over the last several years, really since the pandemic, is student athletes who are there 7, maybe even 8, 9 years because they're getting exemptions. This would limit everything to 5 years. So this would provide more stability for roster building. It actually makes it more like the pros. There's other ways that you could do this. You could use contract law to do it. But what's trying to happen again is one system across the country.
So these players are obviously getting paid a lot of money. Do you feel like this bill answers the question that these players are employees, technically?
So this bill actually takes the language that it uses is a neutral stance towards that. And that's one of the complaints that some people have towards the bill, is that it's proposing to give the NCAA an antitrust exemption, but not at least taking a stance on whether the athletes can unionize. It doesn't mention this at all. It just says we're not dealing with this. And so some people are saying, well, this creates a power dispersion where you've got the NCAA with a lot more power, and the athletes, if they can't unionize, aren't able to return that power as well. But this bill is neutral on that.
Okay. So if this bill does pass, what's the first thing sports viewers would maybe realize or notice?
Well, the first thing that they would notice is you will not have players transferring every semester. It's essentially free agency at all times, with especially the major sports. The second thing is college football coaches are not allowed to leave their program in the middle of a competitive year. So the Lane Kiffin situation that happened in the SEC this year, that would not be allowed to happen. He would not have been able to move from Ole Miss to LSU until the end of the national championship. So those are just two things that your casual viewer would notice.
Okay. All right, Dr. Jared Pinson, Cedarville University. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, have a good one. Happy Monday.